This is Ready Set Reiki, a podcast about Reiki, the universal energy life force, from the curious beginner to the seasoned master teacher, welcoming all systems, all lineages, and all levels. Reiki is a journey and not a destination. And on this Ready Set Reiki journey, we refer to ourselves as guides rather than hosts, as we too are traveling, support each other, and learning on this Reiki journey as well. With that said, I am your first guide, Tracy C. Wright.
I am your second guide, Kim Cardiel Early.
And joining us on our journey today is Caroline Vu. Now, she is a Los Angeles based painter who uses acrylic and oil paint to make her art. She creates pictures that can be used as tools combining art and energy. Through affirmations and visualization, she infuses some of her artwork with Reiki to channel positivity and healing. Her paintings are made to encourage viewers to explore the subconscious, embrace personal transformation, and maintain their focus on their goals and dreams. Blending the visual, spiritual, scientific, her art offers a portal for empowerment. While not all her creations involve Reiki, her work reflects on the beauty and struggles of life. She is a stage 4 breast cancer survivor of 10 years. With paintings, she uses images to connect to our human state as a way of healing, using our emotions and acknowledging them as they are powerful ways to heal and navigate through life. Even though emotions can be temporary, she believes it's important to validate them as inform us. Through her artwork, she paints the emotions, the good, the bad, to invoke feelings of joy, bliss, fear, anger, and sadness. And her mission is to inspire, empower, and help guide others through art. Caroline, welcome to Ready, Set, Reiki.
Hi, Tracy. Thanks so much for having me.
Wonderful. So let's begin our journey. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in Southern California. My parents emigrated from Vietnam in 1975. Had a pretty normal childhood. And after graduating from college, I got into the mortgage industry as an escrow officer. I did that for several years. And then I wanted to explore my passion. And at the time, it was baking. So I started a cupcake business doing cupcakes, cookies, cakes for weddings and birthdays. And that was a lot of fun. I got to be creative, and that was a great learning experience. But then shortly after, I started noticing some my changes in my body, how I was digesting food, and I got more health conscious. And so I was just, taking in as much information, and I got certified as a health coach. And ironically, shortly after I finished that, I got diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. So that was 10 years ago. And since then, I've definitely learned a lot more. And while I was healing, I wanted to be intentional about my time, and I wanted to incorporate joy into my life. So art is something that I've always wanted to include, but I'm like, oh, later. And so I thought I'll just start taking a class. And after a couple of classes, I just completely fell in love. And I'm just like, I can't believe I'm discovering this this late in life. And I was so addicted and amazed at how happy it made me, how much joy it brought to me. And so since then, I've been taking a class per semester. It's nice to have the community, the camaraderie, the structure. And then I've incorporated some tools while I healed from cancer, and I've incorporated that into my art. So part of what I offer are ready-made paintings, they're abstractions, they're portraits, but I also offer customized portraits that you can include Reiki if you wish or not.
Beautiful. What a beautiful thing you've discovered on your journey. How lovely.
Yeah, it's been an interesting 10 years.
Sure. And I'm sure you never imagined when you got into the business of working with mortgages that, you were going to end up doing this.
No clue. There was no connection whatsoever. I think the last art class that I had taken was, I was like 14.
Right,
So
right. Wonderful. So when did Reiki come into your life? Did you find Reiki or did Reiki find you?
I would say, I'm putting Reiki under energy work. And my first experience with energy work, I guess it found me because at the time when I was in my sweets business, I was making chocolate truffles. They were actually cannabis truffles that I was bartering with a masseuse. So I would give her cannabis truffles and she would give me a massage. Um, so I thought it was a really nice exchange. And one day she said, I'm offering cranial sacral massage. Would you like to try it? And I was like, sure. At the time, I had just lost a friend. He was young, and he died. It was just out of the blue all of a sudden. So it was really shocking. And, before she had called me, I was going through this grief that I hadn't experienced before. I felt unanchored and just kind of floating and at times I felt numb, but then other times I would just burst into tears at random places. Like, I'm headed into the supermarket and I just start crying. So I have to stay in the car and cry. And I didn't know how to process these feelings. So I went into a session with her. I laid down on her bed, face up, and she cradled my head in her hands. And then I thought, okay, well, I'm here for this specific reason. Um, I should focus and think about my friend Joey, who I had lost. And I closed my eyes, and just a minute in, I started thinking about him, and I became really emotional. And I started crying, and tears were just falling down the side of my face because I was laying down. And I grieved. I mourned for his loss. And then, after that one session, I no longer had that kind of spacey sort of grieving where I just wandered about life, lost. I felt like I processed it. And then now that when I think about him, it's more of like missing him and thinking about fond memories. And so that was just a really powerful experience that I had.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Sounds like it was a
Of
beautiful
course.
experience and to be able to reflect so lovingly on that friend that you lost. So you were out creating art. What is a common misconception about your work?
Well, one is that a lot of people don't even know about Reiki. I don't find it's common knowledge at all. I feel like it's kind of how other things evolve, like chiropractic became more mainstream, acupuncture was kind of next, or vice versa. But besides Reiki not being like common knowledge now, I think the biggest misconception is the power behind energy work and the things that we don't see. The best example that I can give you is an experiment that I read about, and I think it was called the International Peace Project. And what they had done was they conducted an experiment and they trained many people, hundreds of thousands, I forget what it was, to do transcendental meditation. Um, they instructed these people to meditate at certain times of the day and on certain days. So they started recording the amount of terrorist attacks, the crime rate, the ER visits, and the traffic accidents. And when they took note of those numbers during the days and times that people meditated, it was significantly lower. It was so consistent that they even came across a formula for it to determine how many people you needed to do meditation in order to affect everyone else. And it was the square root of 1%. So in a population of 1 million, the square root of 1% is 100. So you just need 100 people to change their internal environment to affect everyone else around them. And I think that's incredible to have numbers involved, to apply to something that's so intangible that you can't see to something that we can understand with hard numbers.
Right, right. And it's just amazing, to me, I grew up, my mother was an artist and I always had the arts,
Mm,
around. And when
mhm.
creating that painting, you always have, or not always, you're inspired by something and to have that intention and but take it to the next step where you're bringing in the energy with that intention, whether it's a blessing, positivity, uh, highest good into that painting. So how beautiful that is that you're doing this work or offering that work, for whether it's a loved one or a loved one who has passed, in memory of that. So it's a wonderful thing that you're offering.
Thank you.
So, what has been the biggest challenge or rather struggle you've had facing in your own healing journey?
The biggest struggle was, staying with the belief that I would be okay. When I first got my diagnosis, I thought, okay, this is going to be hard. It's going to be rough for a couple years, but I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to die from cancer. And I'd made up my mind, and I'd gone to see a lot of doctors, conventional, natural, and I was getting a lot of conflicting advice. It was really confusing. But what I did notice was that the one thing that they agreed on was mindset. That mindset was really important. So that really stuck with me. And I looked up as much content as I could, supporting that and as to the reasons why. But day to day, to stay with that mindset, it's challenging. It's not easy. It's a simple concept, but it's not easy. And so part of what I did was use visualization. I found an image of a woman holding her arms up in victory, and you could see her from the back, and she's just flooded in sunlight. And that was really meaningful to me because I'm like, I could be that woman. I could be the woman who got through this and is now okay and feeling this sense of victory and bliss. And so it's really the challenge of holding the belief, but using imagery to stay with that. And that's why I offer the art that I do is that, I do open works that are open for interpretation, but it's also works that are focused and geared towards what the person is looking for. If they're looking to grieve and mourn paths um, and process somebody's passing, or if they're looking to accomplish a goal that they find maybe feels a little bit impossible. These are not just artwork, but it's something to look at to remind you of like, no, this is what I'm focused on. This is a possibility, and to connect to that outcome.
Right. And what a beautiful image that you were able to see with that victory because that has become you. You did it.
Yeah, I really think that was key. I mean, I went through treatment, but I think putting everything together, and that was also a difficult thing, was to decide, what do I do? Do I do conventional treatment, which terrified me, or do I do this thing that I had limited experience and knowledge about? And the more I learned about it, it just made sense to put the two together.
Put the two together. Beautiful, beautiful. So, what is something you wish your younger self knew about your current profession?
This is all still fairly new to me, and I'm learning all the time. But I think the most important thing is to put out work that speaks to me, and that, my work isn't for everybody. Nobody's art should be for everybody. It's great if you connect to a lot of people, but if you create work that comes from like the real you, just what makes you happy, you're going to find people to connect with it, whether it's music or art or architecture.
That's beautiful. So, when it's time for you to get that energetic tune up, or when you're even seeking perhaps a teacher, what qualities do you look for in an energy healer or worker?
I would say vibe is the most important in a nutshell, and that means their cadence, how quickly they're speaking, their voice, um, but also their sense of compassion, patience, and right up there is listening to what my needs are, so that it's not superseded by what they think I need right off the bat. I think those are really important.
Beautiful. So, you've been on this journey, you're learning, you're growing. What advice would you give someone who's just entering this profession?
Um, I think just to be real, just to put out artwork that you are proud to show, um, that speaks to you, and not to do it to cater to anybody's likes or needs. Um, and that I think you'll create the best work. That's not always easy to do because we want to please people. We want to have people, appreciate our art. But so it's a pretty vulnerable practice to, it's coming from like your soul to put out the work. And if somebody doesn't like it, it kind of it kind of hurts my feelings. So, but I think it's important to stay true to what speaks to you, as unconventional, and the more unconventional, the better, because it's like that we're all different, and that's coming from who you are.
Beautiful. Do what you love and it will grow.
Yes, exactly.
So, what books do you recommend?
There's one of my favorites is one from David R. Hawkins. It's called Power versus Force. And I remember somebody gifting it to me, and I read it as quickly as I could. I found it so fascinating. And I'm going to try to summarize it, but it's kind of this, it's metaphysical, so it's not an easy concept to capture, but he came up with a system, I believe it's called the levels of consciousness, and it goes from a system of 0 to 1,000, and it includes the human emotions going from low to high. So a few examples are shame and guilt are at the low end, and you go up to anger, and you go up to desire, and you go up to love. But each one, he explains why each one is higher than the next. For example, um, what was it? Shame is the lowest because it's about how you feel about yourself as a person, and guilt is how you feel about the actions that you did. Um, and anger is low, but it's also above those because, in a sense, it's this energy to make a change. Um, and the book is really incredible. I would encourage anybody who's interested in spirituality and psychology to dive into that, because there's so much that you could apply to looking at religion, science, even artwork. So that's definitely one of my favorites.
Beautiful. Thank you for that recommendation. So,
Sure.
I'm interested and I go on your website. Let us know what services that you offer.
Right now, I'm focusing on the paintings, and I am still offering Reiki paintings if you want something customized. Whether you want something customized without Reiki, with, I also do have works that already are completed, and some of them are on the website. But you can also find more of my current works on Instagram, and then it takes a bit of time before I kind of get it onto the website, but they're on both platforms. And also, if you want to gift to somebody else who has an anniversary or a birthday coming up, I also do offer gift cards.
That's what I was just going to say. There's such a beautiful selection. I just couldn't make up my mind, where do I pick, and if you can't, give someone the gift card. So what a wonderful
Yeah.
option. So not too many websites do offer that. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
So where
Yeah.
can we find you?
My website is carolinevu.com, and you can find more information about the Reiki paintings, how they work, if it's for you. There's an FAQ page, and I encourage anybody that's curious, just feel free and have a conversation with me and see if it's the right thing for you or not.
Right, right. So painted Reiki, paintings of loved ones, celebrating life, commissioned, all those good things. So
Yeah.
this ends our part of our journey together, and I'm going to pass you over to my co guide, Kim, who has 3 social media questions for you. So, Kim?
Hi, Caroline. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. How are you?
Loved loved reading all your stuff. Loved listening to you. I just love how Reiki really takes people on so many different journeys, and the fact that it's like Reiki brought you where you are now, and even though you're not necessarily practicing it, it's still part of your practice because it's just a part of you. So like even just incorporating all into your
Yeah.
heart is just amazing. And all of us spiritual people, I feel like are really artistic as well, like in one way or another, like music or painting or creating. So I just
That makes
love all of
sense.
yeah, I love all of that. So there were really good questions that came in through social media. The first one that the first user sent in was, how can using affirmations help me navigate life when I have such limited energy?
I totally get that. I suffer from chronic fatigue after doing 4 years of chemotherapy. And what I found was coming up with a routine that incorporated affirmations was it was essential for me. And I happened to find audio tracks from a woman named Bella Ruth Naparstek. And I use one called A Meditation to Fight Cancer. I played it every day during my
Mm.
morning routine. And what I found was with repetition, you start to memorize those things. They start to become part of your subconscious. And it becomes a part of you so that it becomes less of an effort to remember those things. It also it there was a huge cathartic experience that I had with the tracks too. Um, she said a few things that it just struck a nerve and it validated my emotions. And I remember feeling overwhelmed with sadness for what I was going through, and I was grieving for myself. And in the instructions, she tells you to cry if you can. And I remember even driving, you're not supposed to use it while driving. I did. Don't do what I did. Um, but I remember driving and listening to it, and I wanted to cry. So I pulled over into a parking lot and I just sobbed. And
Mm.
I found going through the track again and with that same affirmation that came up, it didn't have the same effect anymore. And I knew that I was healing. I was processing that statement and that emotion. And so I totally understand dealing with limited energy. I deal with it every single day, and it's not an exaggeration. Like how I look now, I look normal and maybe healthy and energetic, but I have to prepare before and I have to rest after, and it's a daily practice of pacing. So I totally get that. I also offer services for health coaching, mainly because I still struggle with this, and I've learned over the years the best way to deal with something that's very, very limiting.
That's awesome. Yeah. I always say you can't fake it till you make it with spirituality, but you can say the affirmations until you feel that frequency and that vibration,
Mm,
right?
exactly. Exactly.
So you were breast cancer you had stage 4? Is that what you
It started at stage 2 and then it was aggressive. It grew within a year to stage 4. I mean, there were times
Wow.
where it was breast cancer. I could feel it like from one day to the next. I'm like, yeah, it's bigger today. And all the
Oh,
while I was trying to stay calm. I was like, it'll be fine. Sometimes, and it was hard. I was trying a lot of holistic things. Sometimes, one explanation was that it might grow bigger before it shrinks. And I
wow.
really had to work on my mindset and be like, things will work out. I'm still healing. That was a daily, daily practice for sure.
Yeah, the one thing that you said that stuck out was how every single doctor, I when you said they all had conflicting things, and I'm like, yeah. And then you said the one thing they said though was the mindset. And it's
Yeah.
so true, So the mindset, the affirmations, and God, everything you said resonated because when we've all been through those things where it's like it's so hard, like everything's gonna be okay, and you're telling yourself that, but that
Mhm.
fear. So other than those
Mhm.
things, like I mean, obviously, like, so this is the next question that kind of got into it, but let me ask it the way the person asked it. But how did
Okay.
yeah, because I was like, wait, because I'm gonna ask it the way I want to ask it. All right. So how did your spiritual practice and your spiritual tools, like the ones that we were just talking about, that's why I was getting off on a tangent, navigate
Mhm.
you toward becoming a survivor of stage 4 breast cancer? So, like I was saying, what else did you use like in your spiritual practice?
Oh, what else did I use? I used many things, but meditation was a big part in dealing with the anxiety of like making the decision. Which way am I going to go? Am I going to go with the oncologist's advice? Am I going to go with the herbalist, acupuncturist? I was seeing so many people. But meditation for sure, which is so difficult, but so simple. Um,
Yeah.
and, I did journaling and I did turn to a book called Radical Remission. And I want to say the author is Dr. Kelly A. Turner. And what she did was she looked at all the people that healed from cancer, whether they had conventional medicine or purely holistic methods or a hybrid. She found that there were 9 common threads that kept coming up. And I used that as my structure of making sure that I hit all those things. Um, but yeah, part of it, the big part of it was, I think the fourth one was like taking control of your health. And that's really the main thing that I did, was to figure out like, okay, I'm exploring more meditation, visualization, affirmations, all those things, journaling, turning to people for support, learning to ask for help. Some of the things that we might find difficult to do, like asking for help, because it was part of those 9 categories, I found like, okay, this is something that I need to focus on. But really like turning to others for help and guidance, because
Mm,
there's so many things to think about when you're going through a cancer diagnosis.
yeah. I love all of that because I think it's so important. Those 9 points that you make, like that, I'm fascinated because I truly believe that people, like, even with stage 4 breast cancer, like with the
Yeah.
mindset and all of that. And it's so hard to say that to somebody who's in that moment, right? Because it's like, oh, just think positive. It's like, okay, yeah, right.
Mhm.
But you're proof, like you are absolute proof that you didn't just give your power away. You didn't just leave it up to the doctors. You took it,
Mhm.
and the whole like spiritual approach to it is just, I mean, that's what resonates for me. So I just love that you're like
Yeah.
living proof of that, like a real testimony.
Yeah. And
So
I do want to say, I do want to say that, a lot of it was wanting something, obviously wanting to live, um, focusing on that and focusing on the feeling that I get from like, oh, okay, I've overcome this, I beat this. But also, as counterintuitive as it sounds, I understood that I had to also let go of what I wanted and let things be and just go work
mhm,
towards my goal of going to my appointments, doing my self-care. But that part of detaching, that's really difficult to tell somebody who's newly diagnosed or going through some big thing. It's like, I'm going to tell them that you have to accept what may happen that is not what you want, So that is something for the individual to accept, that that's something that they could do and explore. It's very, very personal.
yeah, so that's why I like that there's people like you that have gone through it who are willing to talk about it, because there may be like so many people who have gone through that miracle or witnessed that miracle and can testify but aren't willing to talk about it. You know what I mean? So just you like recovering out loud and sharing those experiences and people can hear it, I really feel gives that hope that people need also, when they're in those moments. I've
Yeah,
had so much
and
cancer
that's
in my family, so if
oh,
I
I'm
could have,
sorry.
yeah, and it's I see it energetically, what's going on. So it's like, and I
Yeah,
tried, but you can speak to your blue in the face and try to, give them all these tools and like, hey, here's these 9 steps. But unless they are willing to, do that and do, like you said, explore that. So just I love
yes,
that people like you are here talking about it, and saying, yes, it's absolutely
yeah,
possible. It's not easy, and that's the
not
honesty too.
easy.
It's
Yeah.
not easy. Nobody's saying that it's easy, but we're saying it's possible,
It's
so
not easy. And to go through it is one thing, and then to witness somebody else going through it. And then we have to understand that it's their own experience. It's what they're open to, what they're willing to do.
yes.
And, honestly, I had a difficult time with friends and family who, when I opted not to do chemotherapy, and I
Mm,
was deathly afraid of doing it. I just thought, well, if I do it, it's just going to weaken my immune system, and then that's when I'm going to die. And it really, going through treatment was like the hardest decision because I was terrified. But I really found my calm finding the tracks. And it was one that Bella Ruth Naprostek has for chemotherapy that really calmed me. I used it before I started treatment and during the infusion, like I would play it on my phone while the drip was going on. So
mhm.
that was key, bridging the two together.
That's awesome. Yeah. One more question. So what is one technique with imagery that I could bring into my everyday practice to help? like with healing and
Mhm. Oh,
spirituality?
there's a few, but if I'm gonna choose one, well, it has to be personal to you. It has to elicit an emotion that makes you like want to cry out of joy or even cry out of sadness to like get the emotion out of you. That's part of the healing. But it has to, the feeling is the key, is to make that real. And when you can tap into that, which is again, it's not easy to do, but when you do it on a daily basis and you work that muscle, it's just like going to the gym. You don't work out once, you do it over and over and you get stronger with it. And the more repetition there is, the easier it could be. I have multiple things that I do that's been done over the years, almost on a daily basis, that I've become stronger at doing it because it's repetitive. So I would say repetition and emotion, adding emotion to the visualization.
Hmm. Okay, perfect. Now, is there anything that you would like to add that we missed that maybe would be helpful to the listeners?
Not really. I just wanted to, honestly, I was really nervous coming on. I'm not used to being seen or heard. I'm just the artist who's kind of hiding and painting. Um, but it came to like if my experience could help somebody else, then that's what I'm here for. And I'm glad to do it. But if anybody wants to reach out and discuss my experience, their experience, if they want to reach out to get artwork, um, I'm definitely open to that. Right now, I'm working on more abstraction. So, actually, this one, or sorry, it's reversed. This one is taken from a photo of a friend's cafe, and it was just a gorgeous shot that she took, and I abstracted it. And that's what I'm focusing on now. And then, actually, this one here is a two-piece, which is kind of hard to see, but what I did was, the movie My Fair Lady with Audrey Hepburn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was a scene at the races, and it was just joyous and beautiful, and I love that scene, and everybody breaks out into song. But there's a scene where this man and woman are just kind of holding their drink and enjoying life, and I love that moment. And so what I did was I took a shot and I played with the colors and I abstracted that, and then it's now a diptych, a two-piece painting. So
Mhm.
I do offer Reiki paintings, focused and customized for the person, but it's also more of like things that can inspire you and have more of an open meaning and interpretation. And it can change because it's an abstraction. There's less form and it's more up to the viewer to interpret.
Love that. I love that. Well, that is the end of our journey together, and I'm going to pass it back to Tracy. Thank you so much, Caroline.
Thanks, Kim. It was great talking to you.
You too.
Thanks, Kim. And thank you, Caroline, for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to join us on this journey.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. So, Caroline, you are Los Angeles based. You have your website, right? And also
Yep.
YouTube, correct?
Yes. I have a YouTube channel. It's Caroline Vu Art.
All right, wonderful. So you can check her out there. All right, my wonderful listeners, thank you so much for joining us. If you would like your question featured on the show, reach out at www.readysetreiki.com and social media. Perhaps your question will be featured on the show. Also, today's episode was brought to you by Feather Sister Wellness for Yoga and Reiki, offering a variety of yoga classes, Reiki classes, and Reiki trainings. My name's Tracy Seawright, and this has been Ready Set Reiki.